Hey everybody, Glenn Johnson here with NASA Hunch Design and Prototype. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about how you might be able to do some of your early prototypes just from trash from your recycle bin. Okay. And so here I'm going to do a project from last year for me. It was a 2024-25 program. And this was the objective. We wanted to see if we could develop some kind of a camping like structure that we could land on the moon and be able to extend where we could do our EVAs from. And so students could come up with ideas whether they went on the back of the lunar rover or it could be something that could be pulled by the lunar rover. And you're welcome to look through this, and you should be able to find the project from the 24-25, and you can read through it some more and get some ideas if you like. These were some of the clues and suggestions I had made, so that they could, so that students could work on it the way they wanted to. It needed to have a couple of suit ports so that astronauts could back up into the camper and be able to take their spacesuit off but not come inside. You can look up some more information about that. It needs to have some kind of a window. It needs to have a rock sample airlock. And the idea is, just that you want to be able to study some rock samples, but since you have suit ports, you can't really bring those rocks inside. Now, the dimensions were 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters by 2 meters, but you can choose any orientation for that. And so I spent a little bit of time thinking about what I thought was the right idea. And if I was working with a team, I would be kind of coordinating ideas and being able to put some of these ideas into a good format so that we all had some of the ideas and then start putting together some kind of an early prototype. Now, this is not the prototype that I would take to a final design review. This is my first design that gives all of us something to talk about and point at and discuss. So I spent a little time and I sketched out some of my idea. And here you can see that I've got, so my idea is that I wanted to have some parts that were that would inflate out. So this is a semi-rigid camper. And the idea is that some segments, like this segment right here, would inflate out, and then it would push this hatchway out, and then this one would also inflate out, and it comes this way. But this central section is rigid. The chassis is all rigid, and then I have some wheels that kind of fold out. And this is just what it looks like as you after it does the inflation. And so one of the other things that made this nice is that it didn't have to fold back up. It only has to unfold once, and then it stays that way the rest of the time that it's on the moon. And so that made things a little bit easier. So here I start off with trash. So I go to my recycle bin and I pull out a cereal box and I start sketching out what it is that I want to see happen. And I measure it as best as I can, knowing that this is an initial start of what to do with it. But of course, I'm going to have some mistakes, so don't worry too much about it, right? But I measure it out as carefully as I can, and I put the things in there that I want. The hatch, I know I'm not going to do a whole lot with it, so just a little sketch. Same with the window and the sample airlock. Now, at first, I put this down as the ceiling, and I go, oh, well, that didn't quite work out right. So you'll see that in just a second. But I've got one wall that's solar panels, and I planned out where I wanted the suit ports. Okay, and then this is where I'm going to put my wheels, and you'll see some more of that. So after I cut it out, I folded it up, see if it did what I wanted, and that's where I found out, oh, I'm missing my ceiling. I have the floor. And so it just turned everything upside down for me, but that's not really a big deal. So then I put my ceiling on it, and then I folded it out to show what I wanted. Okay. And so here you can see this is the side that has the hatch on it, and here are my suit ports. So these are fold out segments. So then I know that I'm going to use some cloth for my inflatable segments. So to do that, I put a bunch of holes in there for the stitching. Now, I didn't have to do this. I could have just poked it through with the needle, but I have some leather tooling equipment, and so I use some of my leather tooling equipment to help me get kind of even spacing. But that's not a requirement. It's just something that I had available. Then I cut out for my suit ports. Okay. Now I need to make the pattern for my cloth inflatable segments. So first I just cut it out of some purple paper because that's what I had. And I taped it together. Now notice that I added some extra segments here on each of them, and that's to give me a little bit of room for the stitching. And so, because cloth it functions a little bit different than paper does, and you'll see that although this comes out looking nice and squarish, when I try to stitch all these things together, that doesn't work the same. Make sure you use some good pins just to hold it down, because boy does that cloth slide around. And I just use scrap cloth. My wife does a lot of sewing, and so I had some scrap stuff. But you can use a pillowcase, you can use an old shirt or whatever you got. This does not have to be something extra tidy or anything like that. Use what's available. Okay. All right. So then now I've got a sewing machine, and don't pretend like I'm good at a sewing machine. I'm really not. But because I have it, I used it. But I also could have done the same thing with hand stitches, and it would have worked just as well. Okay, so don't be afraid of getting out a needle and thread and getting the job done. If you want to be a person who helps design spacesuits, you're not going to be a very good spacesuit designer if you can't stitch. So learn a little bit about sewing. It's really helpful for a lot of things in regular life as well as in engineering. When I was a kid, for some reason, we always thought that sewing was a woman's job or something like that. That is definitely not the case. Some of the best engineers I know are really good with a sewing machine. Um, then I need to make the suit ports, and I wanted them to kind of go inside a little bit so that it represented it a little bit better. And so I cut out some pieces, and I just glued them in place. I use a hot glue gun, nothing special there. Then I need to take my inflatable segments, and I've got to stitch it on. And there's really no other way to do it but hand stitching. And this is probably my most time consuming segment, but it really probably took me a half an hour to do both of them. So it's not like it was a lot of work. Okay. Now, once I've got it all got my inflatable segments, now you can see that bigger picture of what I'm looking for. So, um, and notice, oh, here, and I added my wheels, and those are just some bottle caps. And so, now is this my whole idea? Definitely not. This is just the beginning of what we have to talk about. The more you can show with your prototype, the more the less imagination everybody has to have to be able to get your idea and understand what you're trying to show. Okay. So here, now, some of you who pay attention pretty well, you'll notice that this is actually a different one than what I just built. So this one, I built a while ago, and somehow it got thrown away. So that's why I made this one. And so anyways, I had pictures. And so here you're seeing it lands on the moon, and it's all in this crated up kind of position, and that's just a hair doodah there. One side, the other side. As soon as you take the strapping off, it starts coming open on its own. Now, you can imagine if I had a couple of scuba tanks inside, I could open up those scuba tanks and start letting air into it, and it would start inflating. And so eventually, after all of the inflation, now I've got my segments um, positioned. And now these would actually get, uh, and we're talking about 5 psi or so, maybe a little bit more, and they would be almost as rigid as a basketball. And so here, so because now I have something to play with, everybody can touch it on my team. Everybody can move things the way they like, and afterwards we can all have some real conversations about how to make it better, which things they like, which things they don't like, and have real conversations about what the next thing would be. So here, what improvements would you make on this? And I want you to think about it as your own team and how you would do this for your project. Okay. So for example, we might start talking about, do we want to make all of our rigid segments out of 3D print? And then we can print it with holes so that we can do all the stitching the way we want to, because 3D printers will leave those little holes that you need. A plastic bladder so that we can inflate it. Do you want to put something inside so that you can put a straw and just be able to inflate it? Transparent ceiling so that we can see the inside, and that way we can see what kind of other things need to go inside this. Can we improve those wheels rather than bottle caps? Can we have Lego wheels, or do we want to 3D print our own wheels, or do we have something else that works better? Now here I made it so that 4 inches was equal to 2 meters. Well, what if we make it big enough so that we can have a Barbie size lunar camper? Imagine all of the detail that you can do with that. So starting off with trash, starting off with recycled materials, sometimes that can help you go much faster rather than trying to jump in and have 3D printed things from the beginning. Now, it's not a requirement. This just makes things a little bit easier for you and to make your progression from one prototype to the next a little bit easier, and much more conversations can be had when you have things in front of you so that you can talk about it. Okay? Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you're doing well on your projects and that your prototyping is going to go a little bit smoother. Thank you.